Howdy, guys. Jimmy Song here for Off Chain. I have an interesting episode for you, and I'm not sure how this will go over with you guys, to be honest. But I have with me Raj Nair from itBit. Raj has been managing. Well, what's your title again? Sorry about that.
I'm the VP of Engineering at.
That's what I thought. So Raj is the VP of Engineering at itBit, and he's been doing this for a while. And I wanted to have him on so that for those of you that are sort of interested in getting into this industry, into Bitcoin blockchain development, he can sort of offer a perspective. Also, I wanted to have him on because itBit is sponsoring 5 scholarships for. Programming blockchain New York. That is pretty much full at this point. I can maybe squeeze in one more, but at this point it's like chock full. So please apply to the one afterwards in Toronto if you're doing that. Anyway, Raj, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So little known fact, Raj was my boss at Paxos, and he actually made me do my first blog. He made me write for the Paxos blog, and I did that for like a couple of them, and I actually submitted a third one, and for some reason he didn't like that third one. That ended up being the first article that I published to Medium, and that sort of began my blogging and YouTube career. So if you guys don't like me, you can blame Raj for that.
Right, so you basically can actually blame me for all of Jimmy Song's fame.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so I've known Raj for a while, and I wanted to talk a little bit about all that. But before we get to about Bitcoin development and all that stuff, but before we get to that, what for the sake of my audience, what does itBit do? What are you guys all about?
Sure. So we're a cryptocurrency custody and exchange platform for people who don't know what that means. Custody is essentially safekeeping your crypto assets. So we are New York regulated by the New York Department of Financial Services. We have a trust charter that allows us to safekeep clients' assets. So what that means is that by regulation, large institutions or financial institutions and hedge funds and so on and so forth are not allowed to hold their own assets. And in the cryptocurrency world, we can be their custodian. I think that is one of our primary businesses. Now, in addition to that, obviously, once you actually are custodying crypto assets, you have those assets. You want to obviously connect the crypto world to the fiat world, right? And so for that, we actually provide an exchange where you can actually, basically trade your Bitcoins and convert that into USDs and so on and so forth. So we offer both kind of services. Essentially, we connect the crypto world to the fiat world.
Well, good stuff. All right. So let's talk. Let's move on to sort of like Bitcoin / blockchain engineers. It can't be easy finding some of these guys. I think the latest statistic I heard was something like 9 openings for every 1 qualified Bitcoin or blockchain engineer. So what's your process? How do you find these engineers that you need for your company? Well,
I'll tell you, it's extremely hard to find blockchain engineers. You know this. We use the usual means, right, to find engineers like LinkedIn, GitHub, etc. Actually, at some point, we had a database of every crypto and blockchain engineer on the planet. And trust me, that database is not that big. So the reality is that there are not many out there. But what has been most effective for us is networks such as yourself. I mean, as Amy mentioned before, I was his boss, so he used to work at Paxos / itBit, and and as part of his network, we were able to hire some people. We also have been very active in the meetup space. So where we are based out of, which is in New York, BitDevs is very famous, and like a lot of crypto enthusiasts and engineers attend that meetup. We had a lot of success hiring engineers from those meetups. And that's like one area, one place where we have. But the reality is that there are not many people out there. At some point, it's like the same problem that happened with mobile development, right? Like, I mean, when mobile became hot, there were not enough mobile developers. So we went with a strategy of hiring really, really smart engineers and teaching them blockchain and crypto. And by the way, Jimmy has been like instrumental in that, and he's actually helped train a lot of my engineers and has trained a lot of other engineers, and he continues to do that with programming blockchain. So I'm very, very
and in fact, programming blockchain actually started as me training a bunch of engineers at itBit. So
yes, that's exactly correct. I find this incredibly valuable, and it's like I'm very excited about the scholarship and sponsoring students, because I just don't think there's enough talent. I mean, we all know this. There is not enough talent out there who actually knows this stuff, and this stuff is hard.
That makes sense. All right. So for the benefit of my audience, I think I suspect a lot of them are developers that are maybe thinking about getting into this space, or want to sort of think about, switching into this industry. What are some things that they can do to get on your radar? Like how would they be discoverable to you?
Yeah, I actually think get involved. Get involved in open source. Go to Jimmy Song's programming blockchain training. I'm not trying to say that for that perspective, but get yourself trained in this stuff. Contribute to open source projects. There's a lot of open source projects out there, and trust me, I'm keeping an eye on all of them. That's actually a great way to get on radar. Attend crypto events, go to meetups. That's another way to network with a lot of engineers, a lot of companies. That's how you get noticed in this space. And, it's at the end of the day, we're talking about a decentralized world where, everything is happening, through means like GitHub. And, so we want to make sure that just put your code out there. I want to see your code, because that's obviously, I'm very, very, picky about that. And I want to make sure that I see your code. So, get involved in open source, which actually helps us see your code and see what you can do in action. And then, that's how we get on your radar, on our radar.
Yeah, I mean, so sort of related to that, what advice would you give to somebody that's maybe in one particular industry, or they're thinking about switching? Like, what advice would you give them to sort of enter this space, if you will?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing in this industry is, I would say, is be curious. The pace of innovation in this industry is enormous. Like, things happen every day. And so, the only way you can keep up with the innovation is by getting involved, right? So try to contribute to the ecosystem. Get onto open source projects, contribute to Bitcoin D, contribute to Lightning Network. If you're an Ethereum, if you're interested in Ethereum, contribute to Get. So contribute to wallet software. There's so many different problems that are still left to be solved in this domain. It's just enormous. There's like enormous amount of pain, and we can actually, I can iterate probably a lot of them, which is like, there is not even like great wallet software that scales for enterprise, for example, right? So, there are a lot of things that are there that you can actually try to solve in an open source way. And I think that's what you want to get into. And I think that's what I would advise people to actually do, to start contributing to open source. And that's to me is like the most important thing here.
Okay. I have a question. I'm getting an echo on your side. So can you mute for a second, and then yeah, there we go. All right, there we go. So I have a question from the audience. So companies like Kraken hire remotely from anywhere in the world. Will you hire remotely? So I think the question is, what's your sort of stance on remote work?
We have remote workers. If you guys didn't know, Jimmy Song used to work remote for me. So, he used to work from Austin, and we are based out of New York. So we are totally flexible with hiring remote workers. We're totally fine with that.
All right, and here's another one. has Raj any programming qualifications himself? So this is always an interesting question because a lot of developers, I think, look for managers that actually have programming experience. So can you speak about?
Sure. I have spent all my life coding. So, I mean, I've been coding, I don't know, for almost 18 years now. So, yes, I do have a lot of experience. I actually have even contributed to some open source projects, like Lightning Network, for example. And, I mean, in this space, I mean, my point is that there are obviously other places where I have been as well, but definitely on Lightning Network. And I unfortunately don't get enough time to contribute to open source much nowadays with you know, all the stuff that is happening in itBit. But yeah, I have definitely been very involved in the space. I also have a significant experience in the fintech space where I have worked on trading systems, and before that used to work for Silicon Valley companies on distributed systems and storage and networking space.
Yeah, and I can tell you guys, Raj is a very good person to work for. So, and he understands what the code is about. And at least when I worked for him, he tried to keep me out of meetings and things. And, you know, those are all very good things for a developer to have. And, you know, if it wasn't for the fact that I had so many opportunities outside of, you know, outside in crypto and doing seminars and things like that, I think I would still be working for Raj. So I just want to endorse him and itBit because they're a very good company to work for. All right. So another question that I have is how you've been in this industry for a while now. How has it changed in like the last couple of years? You need to unmute yourself.
Sorry about that. So the last couple of years have been very interesting. You know, the interest in crypto has exploded for sure, especially institutions have started taking a lot of interest in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which is huge. You know, in general, awareness has gone up a lot. I mean, I've visited various parts of the world. And when I tell them I work in the space, you know, in the crypto space or blockchain space, people are very curious and they want to know how to invest in Bitcoin. How does the blockchain work? What is so great about it? How can we solve different kinds of problems? So I think it has gone from this place of like being known to only a few esoteric people to now going mainstream. And I think that's huge. And I think that has really made a huge difference, you know, because it's pretty much gone mainstream at this point of time. And you know, that's if like institutional investors are interested in it, that means that there is definitely a lot of interest in that space.
Okay. All right. So I have another question from the audience. What if you don't have a background in computer science? How can we still contribute to Bitcoin? I think maybe they're asking more about sort of jobs outside of development that they may be able to get into. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that aren't necessarily developers that want to come into the space. So what advice would you give them?
Sure. I mean, look, again, the advice I give to those people is being curious. Again, if you're not a developer, but you want to get involved, we are hiring people on operations on itBit side, for example, right? I mean, that's like, you know, we, as I mentioned, we safekeep crypto assets, and operational folks on our side are very tech savvy. They need to understand how, you know, things work. They need to understand how, you know, they need to understand public key cryptography. They need to understand multi-sig, how multi-sig works. And, you know, they understand these concepts of, I mean, cold wallets and hot wallets. And, you know, in general, a person, and even an operations person in this space is very, very tech savvy. And I think those are some of the opportunities which are out there for you to even get involved in the space. So you don't necessarily have to be a programmer to do this, but you can also get involved in the space because it's a new kind of an asset, right? So obviously there are ways in which you can actually, you know, contribute, whether it's in the operational space or business development and so on and so forth.
Great answer. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of. It's amazing how many non-developer positions there are that are open for a lot of these companies. They're all sort of like growing like crazy. Here's another one. I think it's addressed to me, but I think I'd like to ask you as well. What is the first programming language you need to learn if you're thinking long-term as a blockchain developer? I don't think language is as important, but I'll let you answer on this part.
Well, you know me on this, which is like I never attach any importance to any languages. I think your fundamentals are more important, and like understanding algorithms, complexity, time complexity, space complexity, and understanding data structures. Like those are most of the important things from this perspective. I mean, language is just a tool that you can actually learn. Now, if you want to really get involved in the space, I would say C++, Python, Go are some of the languages that I would pick if you were to ask me. But frankly speaking, I mean, that's just because most of the open source projects are in that space, right? But I don't necessarily, if you're actually asking me, is that the language that I should be proficient in to get a job in this space? Then the answer is no, because that doesn't necessarily matter because you can learn that language.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's kind of like a lot of people when they want to learn chess, they go, "Oh, what opening should I use?" or whatever. It's a lot more important to know the tactics. And in the same way, it's not about the actual language that you learn. It's learning how to do software development. I think I wrote a tweet a while back, things that they should teach in computer science, but they don't in and it involved like source control, writing a good code review, and writing unit tests, and learning how to do all of that. These are all things that would be really useful.
Yeah, very good point. Software engineering is something which is not just computer science, but also the process of building software. How do you scale software? Your concepts around that, like those are fundamentally some things that I care about very much, and I know Jimmy cares about as well, because that's the part which actually doesn't. It's something which is not. I mean, which is more fundamentals, in my opinion, than like languages. Languages. There's one language is hot today. There's another language that is hot tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's amazing how many people sort of focus on the language when it really, for a good developer, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I've coded in 5 different languages.
What was the company of Raj? I think I'm not sure what that question's about, but yeah. Somebody just said I just applied for the software engineering job at itBit. So you know the timestamp, you can figure out like somebody that applied right now. So we can trace back to who it was. But anyway, anything else going on at itBit? Any future plans that you guys have coming that maybe you guys want to share or talk about?
We are hiring. That's the biggest thing that we are actually doing. Obviously, significantly, we are working on we are adding support for other cryptocurrencies. Not every cryptocurrency, but support for other cryptocurrencies on a custody platform, because our clients are asking for exposure to others. We are also, significantly investing in our infrastructure to improve, our scalability, security, and so on and so forth, which is obviously always needs to be top notch in this industry, as you know, Jimmy, because it's extremely important that we have all those pieces in place. And specifically, with all the volume that is coming through, it used to be different 2 years back. It's completely changed now. There's like high frequency trading firms who are actually putting in volumes, and they care about milliseconds. So, so I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's going mainstream, and it's becoming, very, very close to, some of the more mature assets out there, like equities and so on and so forth. So it's really interesting times.
Okay.
A lot of work, hiring a lot. So software engineer, there are more positions. We are hiring.
Yeah. I think, I certainly, if you're looking to get involved, I think going to a lot of these technical meetups and being curious, and all of these things that Raj has said so far, I think are really, really good pieces of advice for those of you that are looking to get in. Another question I have here is it still difficult to find Bitcoin devs or enough people, or are enough people getting into it? So that, I think we sort of answered that, but how has it sort of changed over the last 6 months or so? I mean, I know like when I left, you know, it was still really difficult to find anyone qualified. Has it changed any in the last 6 months or so?
I actually think that you should do more of programming blockchain courses. Do this because there isn't still enough. I mean, I think there's too much demand, right? I mean, look, I mean, we have been able to find some, obviously, I mean, efforts by you and then by Chain Code Labs have definitely helped in this domain, but we definitely feel like there could be more done in this space, and there's still a lot of shortage of Bitcoin developers. It's not. I mean, I never say. By the way, one way on the radar: apply to our jobs. We are always like, if you are a Bitcoin developer, get on the radar. Apply for our jobs. We have Rex for you.
Yeah, so we'll put a link to like the careers page or something in our show notes, so you guys can link to it. But here's another question: do you offer part-time positions? This is an interesting one.
So we have offered part-time positions to some people, and it usually is like being people who have been contributors to open source, and you know this, Jimmy, yourself, which is we are very committed to open source and to a community, and like we sponsor people to just contribute to open source. So we have done those kind of things before, and usually those people are like, I would say that we vet them out very well. We know that they're contributing and so on and so forth. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's out of like a possibility, but it's also like a very thorough process.
Okay. Do you have any need for UI/UX positions?
Yes.
Okay. All right. What do you look for in those? Because that's got to be very interesting given the UI/UX challenges of anything Bitcoin related. Well,
I think there is no UX in Bitcoin. I mean, it's an unsolved problem, right? I mean, if you actually type in something wrong in the address, your money's gone, right? So I think
there's a checksum, so it's like 1 out of 4 billion or something. But yeah,
like there's a lot of areas to improve in that space, right? And I think there's definitely and you know, like I mean, because we also have an exchange and a custody platform, there's a lot of we obviously, I mean, when you run an exchange, there's a lot of things that you have to build, which is like depth of the order book and, you know, very, very fancy graphs so that you can make actually very quick trading decisions and so on and so forth. So there is definitely a lot of requirement on that space. Also a lot of workflows. So we are, because of our custody business, we actually have a lot of operational flows, and we and it involves a lot of workflows and compliance approvals and goes through all that cycles. So there is a lot of requirement around making it foolproof so that it's not only less error prone, so it's like better risk management, and also better from a regulatory perspective, because as I mentioned before, we are a regulated company and our regulators look at these things very carefully.
Okay. All right. I think that's about it for the questions. Wait. Okay. So somebody just asked a question. Tuned in late. Sorry if this has been asked. What path would you recommend for someone with a non-comp sci background to get into Bitcoin development other than the programming blockchain course? I guess this is asking sort of like, how would you sort of progress slowly without necessarily taking the course?
But this is, it's still in, but you want to contribute to development. Is that?
I think so. I think that's what it's asking. Yeah.
Yeah, I think in that scenario, I would actually first take basic computer science and programming courses first. Code Academy, you know, Khan Academy, all these, and even Coursera have really, really good courses. That's where I would actually start. Actually, Code Academy actually has a very good Python course. And I think if you want to start learning programming, Python is probably the best language to learn. That's what I feel.
Yeah, and I really like Python for everyone. I've been like doing it with my son actually, and he's already through like lesson 5, and it goes through very slowly and in a way that's very understandable. Very good professor from my alma mater that teaches it. So take a look at py4e.com if you want to sort of get into development in general. All right, so there's a couple of specific questions. Somebody is saying, well, there's no UI or UX positions listed on the website. So I guess you'll have to go take a look at that.
I'll make sure we update that. I mean, right, we're like hiring engineers like crazy, but sure, we have UI UX positions. And definitely, just ask them to send it to me directly, Jimmy.
Yeah. All right. I mean, I guess you could email Raj. And do you mind if I tell them your email address? Yeah, Raj@paxos.com. You can, or Raj@itbit.com. Either one will go to him, and there you go. All right. So anyway, thank you guys for joining. I'd like to thank the 91 viewers that are live with us right now. Certainly a lot of fun, like just sort of talking with Raj. Any last words or any words of advice or wisdom that you have for my audience?
I think the biggest word of advice and wisdom I would actually give here is get involved. Get involved, start contributing, and that's the best way to get into the space. Because that's how we get noticed. I will also tell you there are a lot of people, a lot of engineers, and you know this, Jimmy, who actually call themselves blockchain engineers but don't know anything about it. I will tell you that I'm not interested in hiring those engineers. Frankly speaking, like they haven't done anything except read about it. So I think the best way for you is to really get your hands dirty in the space if you want to be an engineer. Now, if you are not an engineer and if you want to get in the space, definitely read more about it, get more interested, invest in it, try buying Bitcoins, try buying different currencies, see what the differences are, try to learn it, understand public key cryptography, take some courses on it, take the cryptography course on Coursera, which is by the Stanford professor, Dan Bona, which by the way is actually doesn't expect programming knowledge. So that I think is extremely good. To get you, up to date on like the basic crypto concepts that you need to get involved in the space, and then there are a lot of jobs out there.
Yeah, so I mean, it looks like we've had a lot of people asking questions. They seem very interested. I mean, I want to thank you guys, thank the audience, and also Raj and itBit for sponsoring 5 scholarships. The path from going from, just sort of, normal development job and into this industry is like easier than ever. You can apply for a scholarship. If you get one, then you can take my course, and then you can like apply to jobs like at itBit. So anyway, I want to thank everyone for being here. Thanks for sticking with us. And this song is done.
Thanks.